It's not found until 1879. So it's like this little secret that's remained hidden.
This idea of respect and tolerance for various religions, ethnic groups, and people, it's something that we still, I think, are grappling with, and we need to have a blueprint. I think this is one of these ancient ones.
I'm always amazed by how small it is and how powerful it is at the same time, which is really wonderful to remember, that power resides in the content and the meaning and not necessarily an enormous monument.
The Cyrus Cylinder is the single most famous object that relates the concerns and issues we have today to the ancient world. The Cyrus Cylinder is a cuneiform inscription which records Cyrus the Great's conquest of Babylon and some of his great achievements, and in particular says that people who had been displaced under the Babylonian regime could go back to the homes that they came from, and that the gods, the statues of the gods that they worshipped, could also return to their temples.
In the cylinder itself, Cyrus gives voice to policies that are unique in the ancient world. Instead of boasting about plunder, he tells us that he not only was welcomed by the Babylonians, but that he restored their sanctuaries, that he brought back people to their homelands, and that in a sense liberated people rather than subjugated them. So it describes a different way of being a monarch in the ancient world. And this is not something that previous rulers have done. And not many rulers have done it since.
We know that Cyrus was true to his word and did restore these buildings that had been desecrated by the Babylonians and did as it were, bring the gods back into their sanctuaries in both Babylon and, according to the biblical accounts, in Jerusalem. So it's the form of rule, the model of governance that Cyrus introduces that makes him a significant figure.
I think the empire that he establishes is the first great ancient empire, which goes from the Indus River all the way to the Mediterranean. It brings together these diverse civilizations that were all important, but now they're all put together and they're in contact with each other.
He was a great conqueror, so it wasn't that he was in any way a pacifist or opposed to the use of force. I mean, you don't build a great empire without conquering other peoples, and he did that. But he clearly realized that to hold a multi-ethnic empire together, it was wise statescraft to allow them to worship their own gods, to have their own culture, as long as they paid their taxes and supported the regime at the most fundamental level.
That is a new economic system. A new imperial system is created in Eurasia. And certainly this is a new beginning. We go back to this idea of tolerance, or what is known in history as Pax Persica, the Persian peace, where for 200 years there is relative peace, and contrary to ancient empires, rather than sucking in or taking all the resources of the provinces to the center, what you have is actually economic prosperity for all of the empire.
He, almost uniquely for an ancient Middle Eastern ruler, was seen very favorably in the Greek tradition as a wise and somewhat benevolent ruler. And likewise in the Old Testament he appears as a hero effectively for the Jewish people, because it was he who allowed the exiles, the Jews who had been displaced from Jerusalem and elsewhere in Judah to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. They were allowed to return and rebuild their temple.
According to the Bible, Cyrus issued a decree that appointed and commissioned Jews to go back home, to go and build their temple and to restructure and restart life in their homeland. And according to the Bible, they did, and that ensured Jewish survival. It also created a flowering of Jewish life in the land of Israel, and created a legacy that's important not only to Jews, but also to Christians and Muslims, because it was at that time that the sacred writings of the Jewish people were brought together and edited and revised and shaped to create what we know as the Bible. So one can say that the Bible that we have was decisively shaped in the time of the Persian Empire, under Persian rule, and none of this would have been possible without Cyrus.
The discovery of the Cyrus Cylinder was particularly important because we had the stories about Cyrus from the Greek writers and in the Old Testament, which painted this very positive picture of him, but was hard to know which elements of this were historically correct and what might have been in some way edited or adapted to the narrative of these writers. Here was an inscription from Cyrus's own day which said explicitly that those who had been displaced in and around Babylonia could return with their gods to where they had come from. So this was contemporary confirmation that these other records did have a basis in historical truth.
I mean, it's not found until 1879. So it's like this little secret that's remained hidden until it's unearthed in the foundations of the temple in Babylon. And it adds credence to the understanding of Cyrus that you find in the Bible and in the classical Greek texts. You know, it's not until you read translations of the inscription that you begin to hear the voice of Cyrus speaking. And I think that's its significance for me, is that it's a voice calling down through 2,500 years and telling us of one ruler's vision as to what might be possible.